Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Allison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cycles of Time. This is for the week of February 10th through 16th, 2025, and we're in the last full week of Aquarius season, about to enter Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac before the astrological new year and the spring equinox. So we're winding down to this deep, liminal, beautiful space. This week, in addition to your weekly forecast, I had the great pleasure of chatting with Rose Blakelock of Mutable Cross, and I'm really excited to share that conversation with you today. Rose is a multi-passionate, mutable being, so hence her alias Mutable Cross. She is a multi-instrumentalist musician, a humanistic astrologer, an eco-poetic writer, and a craftswoman. And she is currently recording and performing under the moniker Knight of Cups, and is a self-proclaimed tech guy offering affordable mixing services for other musicians. And she produces a couple of podcasts. Big Dyke Energy is one that she co-hosts with Gala Mukomlova, and another podcast, Mutable Reception, that's kind of a horoscope and interview podcast. And she also gives one-on-one and couples chart readings, so a consulting astrologer as well. But I discovered Rose's work a couple years ago through her podcasts, and now I've just been following her work online and really love her style of astrology and writing and just the way she views the world. I eagerly await her essays and monthly horoscopes on her Substack, Mutable Musings. Each month she does horoscopes that are just really hit hard. They always reach me in a deep way. And then she also just writes some beautiful essays. She has an incredible way with words that showcases a really deep and profound relationship with the animals, plants, and natural environment of northern New Mexico, where she calls home. So as a native New Mexican, or someone who grew up here, the way that she really just deeply understands the ecosystem and the plants and has this deep relationship with it really strikes a chord for how the deeper layers for why I love astrology and I love paying attention to cycles is that relationality with the natural world and the more than human realm. So I love the way too that Rose describes her practice of astrology. She says astrology is a way of listening deeply, a powerful symbolic language that helps us investigate and explore our interiority and attune to the natural rhythms and cycles unfolding around us. My hope is to help you listen more deeply to the quiet knowledge that you contain, to grasp toward purpose and find compassion, grace, and patience as life unfolds around you. Rose's birthday is this Sunday, February 16th, so she is an Aquarius sun, born in the human design gate of passion, which is a gate known as clinging fire, fire over fire in the I Ching. Tune into our conversation for insights on the life of a systems-oriented water bearer who also truly embodies the deep passion and deep feels of this fiery gate. So I'll jump right into the nuts and bolts of the weekly forecast, and then we can get deeper into the material with Rose. She has a lot of insights about this full moon in Leo this week, as well as the season of Aquarius and much, much more. So stay tuned. I will post the timestamp of where our interview begins in the show notes if you'd like to jump there. But we'll start out with a little bit of the weekly forecast. And thanks so much for coming on the show, Rose. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. Starting out with this week's highlights, last full week of Aquarius season, like I mentioned. And then February 12th, Wednesday, we have a full moon in Leo across the sky from the sun in Aquarius. It's known as the snow moon by some, and it is in human design gate 4, the gate of formalization. Well, the sun for that time period is going to be in gate 49, the gate of revolution. So it's this polarity between revolution and formalization. Then Friday, February 14th is Valentine's Day. And then in the Human Design and I Ching Wheel of the Year, Monday through Wednesday, we're in gate 49, the gate of revolution. And then the sun transits into gate 30, the gate of passion or the gate of feelings, from Thursday until next Tuesday, when we will enter Pisces season. So the themes of this week are feeling your feels, deep feels. The gate of passion and that Leo full moon both evoke our personal and emotional skin in the game within the bigger picture. So it's a heartfelt week for sure. There's also a polarity here between seeking certainty and embracing radical change, kind of feeling the tension between those two sides of the wheel. And the third theme is passion, like fire, must be tended to, but also allowed to burn and flow naturally. So thinking a lot about passion and how it ties into revolution this week. Our place in the Wheel of the Year, which you can always find the visual aid for on Instagram, pinned to the top at Cycles of Time Podcast or astro.somatics, or you can go to astrosomatics.substack.com, where you can subscribe and get this in your inbox every Monday if you like a written version transcript of the show. But I always do post the multifaceted Wheel of the Year that I reference here. And we are, making our way around the wheel. We are in the medicine wheel direction east, having just been in the north. We're kind of just entering the direction of east after Imbolc and the Lunar New Year last week. Kind of is that first fledgling hope that spring is coming. And east represents the element earth, spring, birth and childhood, and physicality. We're kind of coming out of this spiritual, watery realm of elderhood and, kind of that wintry energy and moving into a bit more of that emergent action. And that also is reflected in the whooshing 5-element cycle, where we're kind of on the cusp between water and wood in Chinese medicine and in this whooshing 5-element cycle. The element earth always comes, is representative of the transitional time between seasons. And so we've been in this element of water and are coming towards wood. Wood grows out of water. It's an upward growth kind of energy after a underworldly, subterranean, watery energy of the winter. And so we're kind of in this like earth to wood transitional time right now in that cycle. The pagan wheel of the year, we just celebrated Imbolc, and the next holy day will be Ostara at the spring equinox. The zodiac season of Aquarius is lasting this year until February 18th. The moon phase is a full moon in Leo on Wednesday. And then within the I Ching and Human Design Wheel of the Year, we are in Lake Over Fire, Gate 49, from Monday through Wednesday, and that's known as radical change or revolution. And then moving into Fire Over Fire or Clinging Fire, Gate 30, aka the Gate of Feelings or Passion. So just jumping into the the full snow moon in Leo, it's happening February 12th, and it is bringing a burst of creativity and self-expression and bold energy, as it is in the lion's domain. as the moon reaches its peak, this culmination point, it is going to be illuminating our desire for recognition, like our self, like I mentioned, kind of our passions and our heart and our self. Our self-expression is Leo, and kind of collective social expression is Aquarius. So it's operating on that axis, kind of reminding us of the power of our personal boundaries and our unique individual selves within the larger system of Aquarius. With the moon in Leo, we're encouraged to embrace our creativity and take pride in our unique talents. And this full moon is forming supportive aspects with Jupiter and Mercury, and it is making a T-square to Uranus. And so it's amplifying communication, growth, opportunities for expansion, and we'll talk more about the kind of Uranus aspect in the conversation with Rose. It's definitely a powerful time for setting intentions that align with your authentic self and your personhood, embracing new creative projects perhaps, and not being afraid to share your gifts with the world. Like I mentioned, it's in the human design gate of formalization, which is known as youthful folly in the I Ching. And this is opposite the sun in the gate of revolution. Just like the zodiac signs have this planetary polarity up opposite in the sky, human design gates across the wheel also have this dynamic interplay between two contrasting energies. And so with the moon in gate 4, formalization, and the sun in gate 49, revolution, this polarity is kind of enhancing a tension between logic and emotional transformation, seeking certainty versus embracing radical change. So the moon, as most of you probably know, it governs our emotions, our subconscious patterns, and our inner needs. And so in gate 4, in the gate of formalization, there is kind of an emotional attachment to formulating and finding answers and seeking logical solutions and making sense of life through mental frameworks. This gate 4 is part of the Ajna, or the third eye center in the human design body graph, and it seeks to categorize experiences and create a structured reasoning, and that's often in response to uncertainty or doubt. It completes the channel of the 63-4, which I have activated in my chart, which is this kind of doubt and then formalization. It's this like feedback loop between like questioning things and then formulating the hypotheses about them. So it's definitely, this full moon is kind of representing our Leonine self-expression, but self-expression in the sense of formulating like problem solving, like this quest to create order within the chaos. But at the same time, it's definitely operates best when it accepts that not all answers come immediately or in a fixed form. The shadow side, or kind of like a complicated side of gate 4, is an overthinking, mental rigidity, and an excessive need for logical validation before taking action. So it's got that fixed energy of the Leo Aquarius axis, where there's a bit of a stubbornness to it, and we can benefit from recognizing that as we have this polarity between formalization and revolution and Leo and Aquarius, and we can just really start to think about, okay, like how much of a formula or a framework is necessary before we take action. So, on the other hand, the sun is representing the core essence of self-expression and life force energy and consciousness and will. And so in the gate of revolution, the sun has been there since last week, and it's focusing on just what it says, a radical change, finding the emotional clarity that's needed for transformation, and restructuring of relationships and systems based on ever-evolving values. And I talked about it a bit last week in last week's episode, about just really finding that underlying clarity and being more responsive than reactive when it comes to revolutionary themes. Unlike Gate 4, which seeks mental certainty, Gate 49 demands emotional certainty before initiating change. And it challenges old paradigms, breaking us away from anything that no longer aligns with our core values. And that's particularly in relationships and social structures and kind of tribal agreements. So the highest potential of Gate 49 is not impulsive rebellion, but definitely a conscious revolution that emerges from a deep emotional awareness. And I always love to liken revolutionary fists in the air to the revolution of the Earth around the sun and all the planets around the sun, and how there is a certain order to the revolution, a certain awareness of the timing. It is, as Rose mentioned in her description of astrology, it's a timing device. It connects us to the larger cycles, and revolution in a social way as well, when it's most effective, is coming from that place of finding that emotional clarity by tapping into what you truly value and how to connect that to systemic change. So this polarity between formalization and revolution, Leo and Aquarius, is asking for contemplation on how we integrate mental reasoning and emotional truth. The moon in Gate 4 might resist change by searching for logical answers and certainty, and the sun in Gate 49 is calling for transformation that's based on emotional conviction, even when logic can't really explain it. So the challenge here is recognizing when to trust your mind's insights and when to surrender to the true wisdom of emotional cycles. And that leads us into the Gate of Passion, which is Rose's birthday gate. It's looking at the fiery emotionality of the end of Aquarius season, after we've been building out structures and systems, and the past several gates of Aquarius have been listening, revolution through listening to ourselves and then listening to others, and kind of recognizing limitations and contracting inward. And so there's a lot of deep listening. And then the end of Aquarius season brings this Gate of Passion or feelings, where it is a lot more kind of outward and fiery energy. So that is the polarities of the moon. I feel like what could come across as an unbalanced expression of, sometimes full moons can really throw us off because we're, the two different areas of the sky where we're being called our attention to can be, can like flip us on our head sometimes if we're not really feeling like those elements of our life are integrated at all. That's how I see full moons. They can either be like super intense and emotional in a very dramatic way, or they can be very like elated experiences of like, oh my God, I see this integration. I feel this integration in my body of these two opposite sides of the coin, of this sphere. And so if you're feeling that flip on your head energy, this full moon might feel like kind of getting stuck in overanalyzing revolution, like just being like, well, what is the right way forward? Could things change? How do things change? And then, instead of listening to the feeling of when the change is emergent. If it's more harmonized, you could be using intellectual discernment to clarify, which intellectual discernment is definitely Gate 4 energy, that Leo kind of fixed, like, I understand my part in all of this. I understand how I am a node within the larger system, and that can clarify vision for transformation at a larger scale level, while also trusting the emotional timing to initiate meaningful change. And the big lesson of this moon through these lenses is that not all change can be rationalized. And some shifts require emotional certainty at a greater degree than mental validation. While other shifts could benefit from slowing down and being more thoughtful and structured about your approach. And so there isn't one right way. The full moon opposite the season we're in is always just shining a little flashlight into like, well, what's another way we could do this? Like, are we being too structured, creating too many systems? Should we be a little bit more passionate about this? And it's never about going overboard. It's finding that balance between the two. So by embracing both of those energies, we can move beyond a reactive rebellion or a mental paralysis into a state of aligned and conscious transformation where the mind can serve as a tool for wisdom rather than a barrier to making change, to revolution. So moving on to the next gate a little bit deeper before we jump into the interview with Rose. Valentine's Day, for all who celebrate. I don't really know. Is it a Hallmark holiday? What is it? It's there. It's a thing. It is falling in the gate of passion, which is kind of appropriate. It just seems like it links up pretty nicely. I like looking at the holidays of the year in the Gregorian calendar, like the major celebrated holidays, and seeing what specific energies they fall into. Because it oftentimes is like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But Valentine's Day and the last final gate of Aquarius season before we enter Pisces is gate 30, the gate of passion or feelings. And the sun will be transiting here from this Thursday through next Tuesday. The gate is located in the solar plexus, emotional solar plexus center, and it holds the emotional fire of desire, longing, and deep yearning for experiences that bring meaning. Gate 30 is talking a lot about desires being powerful, but also fleeting in the way that fire is. Constantly moving. And so this energy is about really learning to surrender to emotional waves of expectation and disappointment. And that's how we grow, is through that, the way that fire moves through a forest, for example, the way that fire kind of takes things through it. It is a very fast moving type of energy and very powerful. And there's a lot of different flickers of energy that come with it. So if you have this gate defined, this week you might experience an intensity of emotions and dreams. And for all of us, we're experiencing this energy this Thursday through Tuesday. So it's, a passionate, feeling, emotional energy that has highs and lows. And it's about really wanting something deeply, having that deep, like gut level passion, but understanding that all desires won't come across exactly and manifest how we expect them to. In the Gene Keys, gate 30 is moving from the shadow of desire to the gift of lightness to the city of rapture. And I always enjoy kind of looking at just all of letting these words sink in when I read. There's a lot of, I feel like the Gene Keys as a system of understanding the I Ching is very verbose. It has a lot of languaging in it and very long chapters and descriptions. But I like just looking at the basic words, desire, lightness, and rapture, and kind of feeling how they hit in relation to the theme of passion or fire. And so this shadow of desire is kind of about unfulfilled longing that can kind of lead to suffering if we're super attached to outcomes. And there's a certain loveliness about the feeling of longing. In Portuguese, there's a word called saudade, which I love. It kind of translates to an unfulfilled nostalgia or longing for something that has been and cannot any longer be. And it's a very poignant type of energy that's beyond longing or desire, really. And so I kind of see that as there's a beautiful suffering in that. But if we stay in that state of being attached to outcomes, then the flickering fire of change that we're still very much in this season, right after that gate of revolution, it can be really hard to accept that we have an expected desire and it's not necessarily going to get met. So the gift of lightness emerges when we embrace desire without being consumed by that passion and allow our emotions to be experienced without resistance, and feel our feelings. Don't say like we should feel one way or another. Just allow the feelings to flow through and know that emotion is energy in motion. I always love that description of it. And if we're not letting it move, then it can really clog us up in a lot of different ways. So letting emotion flow through. And then at the city level, the kind of transcendent energetic level, this lightness, this ability to let energy flow through can transform into what Richard Rudd describes as rapture, which is a deep surrender to the divine flow of life, where passion isn't bound to external fulfillment, but instead becomes a state of transcendence and bliss. So the key to this journey from desire to lightness to rapture is realizing that desire itself is not the problem. It's a good thing, but it's really just the attachment to specific outcomes that creates suffering and staying too fixed in rigidity. So again, we're moving from the fixed sign of Aquarius into the mutable sign of Pisces at the beginning of next week. And that, I think this is like the gate of passion is kind of like loosening up the fixed structures that have been built just a little bit to allow the water of Pisces to flow in. In I Ching, it's known as, Gate 30 is known as clinging fire, and it is composed of the 2 trigrams, fire over fire, so double trigram here. And it just represents, it's fire. It represents the nature of fire, and fire is something that burns brightly but can't sustain itself indefinitely. It signifies both intensity and transience of life's experiences, emphasizing the importance of awareness and adaptability. Fire, if we think about fire, it has to attach to something to continue burning, otherwise it'll go out. And so if we think about passion in the same way and desire, we attach to dreams and emotions and things of the world and can continue burning onward and forever as we stay attached to these certain emotional elements. But there is wisdom in understanding that nothing lasts forever. Sometimes fires do go out, and that's okay. They can be relit again. So there is an impermanence within this that if we stay light about like, well, I know I'm as a fire, I can burn, I can go out, and then I can definitely come back again in another area and another form, something else. So it's about like not burning down the whole thing by staying so fixed on one passion, for example. So I love that Rose's birthday is in this gate because she defines herself as, has a fixed sign for her sun, but has a lot of mutable placements of other planets. And mutability is really about embracing those changes and embracing multiple passions in life's experience without being controlled by or defined by a singular thing. And I think that just really lines up well with this in this energetic interpretation. So yeah, hexagram 30, fire over fire, really offers us insights into illuminating our path with persistence and staying just, burning while there is something to burn. Fire is warm, provides light, and it helps us gather together in community around the fire. There's a lot of really beautiful elements of continuing to tend to the fire while also letting it have its own natural flow. And if it needs to go out, it needs to go out. If it needs to rage and burn, it needs to rage and burn. So it's yeah, it's a radiant gate, and it's pretty cool energy at this end of Aquarius season. I feel like Valentine's Day, you don't have to say much about it. Valentine's Day, passion, feelings, fire, like that all checks out as far as symbolism goes. But it really, it's teaches lessons of longing and impermanence as well. I think Valentine's Day, regardless of how we view it or want it to be there at all, for me, I have a very kind of hate Valentine's Day, but kind of love it. But I have so many distinct memories of growing up and having just a really hard day on Valentine's Day, just very much it's in your face, how much people are expressing love around you, and whether you're part of that or not. I used to ditch school on Valentine's Day in high school every year and go on an adventure with friends, because it just felt like the candy grams and all the just all the stuff felt like there was it was too much. But now I have a kid and she loves Valentine's Day. And last year I gave her a little heart, a turquoise and coral heart. And she wears it every day since, and is just this is my love heart from Mama. So I'm bringing a new feeling to this holiday. But it's all about this gate of passion, as well as Valentine's Day is a reminder that love, like fire, has to be nurtured, has to be tended to like a hearth, but that you can't control it either. And so you kind of just have to let it flow, and there will be ups and downs and ebbs and flows. So it's just about embracing our emotions this week, really allowing them to come through, be energy in motion, and not attaching to a specific outcome. So that is the gate of passion, gate 30. And it's Rose's Sun Gate, and we are going to jump now into the conversation with Rose Blakelock. I really hope that you enjoy and learn from her, and check out her offerings on Substack and her podcast, and her website at roseblakelock.com. There's a lot of really good stuff there. So without further ado, here is our conversation. I'm sitting here today with Rose Blakelock, who is an astrologer, a musician, an artist, a writer, a host of amazing brilliance. And I'm really excited she's a fellow New Mexico resident. And I've never met Rose in person. We're here on Zoom, but I do look forward to the day that we get to interact somewhere out in the beautiful nature of northern New Mexico. And I am so excited to talk to you today. I'm a huge fan of your work and your divination and your writing, especially how you tap into the natural world, the natural environment around you. You have this kind of eco-poetic thing going on, and I've just learned so much about that relationality between you and the natural world. So welcome here to Cycles of Time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me and for the invitation, Allison. I'm already blushing.
Me too. It happens fast.
There are worse ways to start a podcast.
Than a little light blush. Yeah, totally. I feel yeah. Yeah. I'd love if you could start by just kind of, I introduced a few of these, high level things that you do, but I'd love if you could just tell the world, the listeners, what it is that you're currently excited about or currently up to in your, either professional life or personal life. Big question.
I'm going to try to not be like a full-on trickster, which is what happens sometimes. I'm in flux in a lot of ways. I am deeply rooted in my writing practice and in one-on-one work, and, building out some other different ways to engage with folks. I've taught classes in the past and held workshops, and done some collaborations with my partner as well. She's a breathwork facilitator and an herbalist. So that's been pretty fun to do, semi-seasonal breathwork and astrology workshops. But yeah, I guess I'm a lover of stars and plants and things around us. I try to bring a certain political awareness and also try to keep my humility around what I do and don't know and where my um, kind of areas of deep relationship are and where I'm just kind of dabbling. But yes, I am a musician lifelong. I am an astrologer. I've been in private consultation for 5 years, 6 years now, 6 years now. So
Yeah.
it's getting hard to remember. And then in deep study for a decade or so, though, I was flirting with astrology for most of my life. And I'm a recovering carpenter.
Nice. Nice.
Uh, and now I live on an orchard, so I'm hoping to humbly submit to the study of trees and fruit.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah, your latest Substack newsletter that came out the other day, I think yesterday, was such a beautiful way of relating to, yeah, to the fruit trees, the deciduous nature of kind of where we are in the wheel of the year and where we are in kind of life right now, as far as that, year of the snake shedding process and the hermit year. You brought all of these different archetypes into that direct connection. The trees that you are your new neighbors. And I absolutely love how you bring that true relationality in with the more than human world, as David Abrams would say. But yeah, I feel it when you're writing. I'm just like, that is so beautiful. And yeah, I'm curious to learn more about kind of how you found that type of relationality with trees, with fruit and plants and the stars in this way.
You know, I I think it's a rekindling. I grew up pretty feral, and I grew up around plant people, and a wild and lush garden in my father's backyard, and so I grew up like with the giant pumpkin patch, picking blackberries and learning to grow and harvest peanuts, right? And I went to like not quite a full-on forest school, but I went to a school with kind of Montessori adjacent roots and values as a kid. And so I really learned to learn through play and engagement. And I would say that I kind of lost touch, lost that connection when I left home because I spent the next like 15, 16 years in large metropolises and I was studying people, right? And so I think a lot of my thinking and writing was about that kind of relationality, which I think is so valuable. And I also was so out of touch with my body and so out of touch with land. And then in September of 2020, my partner and I moved to northern New Mexico and, kind of had to start fresh. And we moved to a farmhouse in the mountains with only wood stove heat and went from, her growing a few datura on her fire escape to us like having access to an acequia and land that was semi-decent. We had to do some remediation. But so I really just spent the last 5 years kind of retreating from my former life, which had a lot of beautiful generative pieces and also had a lot of painful lessons, particularly around relating and avoiding conflict and coping mechanisms.
Mhm.
And so I did kind of hermit away. I joke with some people, problematic as it is, that I like had my like 7 years into Brad Pitt moment where this was like just moved to the mountains where I didn't really know anybody and had to figure out how to survive. And then, um, you know, nature abhors a vacuum. So this space that was taken up by people and their ideas was kind of morphed into like this slowness. And I realized like how nurturing it was for me to just listen to the landscape and see what the fuck sorry, can I cuss?
Yeah, go for it all the
Okay.
way. I
Just,
don't, I don't actually know the rules about that. I'm
I
pretty
mean,
sure I cuss all the time, but I don't really know. So yeah, no, I'll edit it out if I find something that says you can't. But
I
yes.
guess we're not like under FCC guidelines or anything.
Yeah, at this point you can drop the
No.
F-bomb, so go for it.
But I felt this richness, and I would say awe is a big part of like what helped me heal. And there's just so many opportunities to experience it when you're in a vast, unfamiliar landscape that is, I don't know, loud with nature and quiet with uh, pe people, you know?
Mhm.
Not seeing giant LED fucking billboards every day. Being able to like go on a walk and not have somebody try to sell me something, like just felt really, really good. And then it just became part of kind of I would say honestly like a spiritual practice to like just be with the land and the birds and the coyotes and the snakes and the some mornings we take the dogs out and there'd just be a family of fucking elk in the field.
Wow.
And like I'm used to like leaving a New York apartment and seeing a man pissing in like broad daylight at
And that
10
type
a.m.
of wildlife, yeah, yeah.
Which like no
Human
shade.
animals, right.
Yeah, people are doing what they need to, but I still and like I want to be really cautious and careful to not buy into this kind of John Muir colonial relationship to land. And also, uh, it feels really good for me to be here and to have more of a balance between like the voices of the land and the voices of other humans, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I resonate so deeply with that. I mean, I grew up in New Mexico, was born and raised here, and then left when I was 18 and lived in big cities, some very big cities, mostly the San Francisco Bay Area, but also New Orleans and Shanghai and Sao Paulo, Brazil, which are like these massive megatropolises that were like far beyond my conceptualization of like I'd been to New York a bit growing up in San Francisco and US cities, but then going to these international cities of like 10x that was like holy like
Bananas.
yeah, you get up on the top of a building in Sao Paulo and not be able to see the edge of it would like fade out into the distance without like a landmark to stop it. Just I was like, whoa. But so I feel you. I had about 18 years in pretty rural nature, grew up in rural New Mexico and then cities. And then I came back in 2020 as well. And so it's a similar timeline of just really being able to recognize the similarities and differences between the human realm of, humans are part of nature, right? But like
Yeah.
the distinct difference between, those billboards and advertisements versus like an arroyo. So,
Yeah.
yeah. What brought you to New Mexico?
Um, my partner and I, Jenny, we knew that at some point we would like to leave New York City. Um, and so in like the fall of 2019, you were kind of didn't really want to be anywhere on the East Coast. Our decisions were also like very much influenced by tick-borne illness and its prevalence
Wow.
because we both were people who wanted to be out more and also like just it's getting worse and worse. We know a lot of folks who are impacted by Lyme. Jenny's dog actually died from a tick-borne illness as well. So it just like oh, I know you can't avoid everything, but there was a way where we were kind of like, okay, where are there fewer ticks? And then we
Mhm.
started looking at the Southwest and we were like, okay, well, maybe LA, maybe Tucson, maybe New Mexico. We knew a couple of folks out here. So we did a road trip in January of 2020. We actually arrived on New Year's Eve, 2019. And we met up with these two folks who we were kind of loosely connected with online and they graciously let us stay with them a few days. And the first thing they did was take us to the outlaw graveyard in Madrid. They
Mhm.
drove us up to the land of the dead.
Mhm.
Um, and then, we had a good time here. We went to Albuquerque, then we went to Tucson, and it was really cute too. But it was January in Tucson, which is really different from July in Tucson. And then ended up in LA and spent actually too much time in LA and got that kind of visiting city gout that you kind of get where you're like, I've eaten out every meal. I'm so tired. I've spent $200 on $6 coffees. Like, I need to go home.
Uh-huh.
And so we had that kind of reverberating in our mind. And then COVID hit. And we, being in New York City when COVID hit, it was pretty rough. Like, the death was so heavy and palpable. Like, the marine terminal just had like shipping containers full of bodies. And you could just feel it. And everybody was scared. Nobody knew what to do. And we just kind of got this feeling. There was also that Mars retrograde coming up. And Anne Orderly on one of her podcasts was like, if you're going to do something, you got to do it before September. And so we were just like, okay, well, let's rethink our options. Tucson's too hot. LA costs just as much as New York. And like, we're going to have kind of the same issues. Fuck it. If we find somewhere in New Mexico, let's just do it. And then we found this old farmhouse off the high road, and I agreed to remodel the kitchen.
Their carpenter skills coming in. You
Oh
did
yeah,
nice,
oh yeah.
nice, nice.
And so we moved there, and that was, 4.5 years ago.
Wow.
Um, and I pretty immediately was like, yeah, I'm not going back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I
yeah,
always love hearing how people get here. I was, yeah, born into this place. And so I'm always really just intrigued by like what brings people. And a lot of times it's this kind of mystical, like I was in Taos and saw like a lightning strike and it was this like void of like I hear a lot of spiritual stories that I'm not trying
yeah.
to make light of or make fun of because
No,
it's real. But so I'm like, I'm almost just kind of like just chuckle a little bit when I hear how much of like a spiritual draw it always. So I like that you had like a bit of that, but mostly like a pragmatic kind of like, where are the ticks? Um, it's like a little bit of both,
yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
Totally. And this guy I was working with at the time before I went, he's amazing. He's one of my mentors. He's a furniture genius. But he, before I went, was like, "Oh, you're gonna love New Mexico. You're never gonna come back." He wasn't wrong. I did come back for about 8 months and then left.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. I love New York. I love spending time there, but yeah, at this point in my life, it's hard to imagine being there full time. I was just there for
Yeah.
Thanksgiving and went to the Macy's parade, and yeah, the Christmas tree pop-ups on every corner and the whole thing. And it was a
Hmm.
scene. I'd never been there that time of year, but it made me realize like I love tapping in and getting that human energy and just being able to like feel the network effect of the city and then come back and process it in quietude. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you
Yeah.
grew up in Ohio, you said? Is that
I did. I grew up in southwestern Ohio in like a little hippie college town. So I'd just like go cause a ruckus on campus in high school.
nice? That sounds fun.
It was. It really was.
Yeah, go to Blackberry Garden and causing a ruckus. Yeah, that sounds like a good place to
Yeah.
come from. Yeah.
Yeah, like Huck Finn without the racism.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a good thing to exclude from this. Yeah, if you can.
Or at
Um,
least conscious, right? I guess there's probably always
right,
something under there.
right. Yeah, can't fully peel it back, but yeah, awareness is a big thing. And I was
Yeah.
speaking of awareness, you mentioned, yeah, you moved to New Mexico based on a astrology transit, a Mars retrograde-ish. I mean, working that in there. And I'm
Oh yeah.
curious when you kind of how you started to deepen your relationship with astrology, from that kind of flirtation phase into astrology. And then, a second part of that would be like, yeah, how do you use astrology in these times as decision making or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Big
That's a
question, double-parted thing. But yeah, I'm curious about just how you got into this art.
Yeah. No, those are great questions. So yeah, I grew up with it kind of always being around. I was intrigued by it. It also, growing up queer, I feel like it's just like a second lexicon. And so it's like you can um, I was like hanging out with college age queers who like knew a little bit. And so then, it was some like social currency to kind of cultivate a little bit of knowledge there. Um, and I think that I was deeply deeply lost in my 20s, as many of us are. And I would say it was my Saturn return that got me to like get more serious about astrology. Um, Partly because I started to realize how much deeper it went. I think I also at some point started listening to, I can't remember if it was before or after I started deepening my relationship, but Renee Sells, who's like a pal now too,
Love her.
her, right,
Yeah.
so good.
So
Like
good.
her
Yeah.
voice and her approach to astrology, I just found so expansive and enticing. And then I would really say, do you know Gala Mukamalova, who used to write galactic rabbit horoscopes for Nylon?
Oh, no, I wasn't familiar with it. I have read some of those, yeah, nylon horoscopes, but I wasn't aware of the person behind yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So she's a
Really?
poet, and like grew up in New York City, and she and I like used to go to the same music festival as teenagers and kind of lost touch. But basically, when Jenny and I started dating in 2016, 2017, um, like our third date was her birthday party, and then I realized I knew half the people there, but we had never crossed paths. And Gala was one of them, and then we just sat there and just started talking about astrology. And Jenny was like, Rose, like I think you know more than you think you know. It seems like you're like pretty good at this and could get better. Like maybe you should actually consider like deepening your relationship and like moving into this because like you don't want to be a carpenter. You're not happy doing that. You're not going to become a famous musician because, uh, well, I wasn't very good at practicing, and neither was the rest of my band. Things
It
could
happens.
change
It can
now.
happen.
Things could
Yeah.
change now. But it
Right.
still like wasn't something that it was something that I could actually have some agency over. And so, thanks to a little nudge from her and a couple readings, from other astrologers, including Renee, who all were like, yeah, actually, you have a great chart for it. And it just seems like something you're actually excited about and something that I've like been consistently interested in for years and years. So yeah, I would say like eight, 8 years, 7, 8 years ago
Well,
is when I really got serious. And then, um, yeah, something like that. And then, kind of went through a lot of intense, my Saturn return hit pretty hard and kind of emptied out a lot of space, like socially and philosophically. And astrology kind of started to fill that gap. And as far as how I use astrology, it, I try not to use it for minutia, and I try to kind of like I'm not gonna like sit and agonize over when to get a haircut. I'm not gonna get bangs during fucking Venus retrograde, but I did get a tattoo during one. You know what I mean? So it's
I've
like,
done bangs during Venus retrograde before. Yes, it was not
yeah.
good choice. Yeah. But yeah, no, totally.
But I think that I actually, it's funny because it's a thing that I talk about with clients too, especially new ones, where I'm like, I bet you came here thinking I was going to tell you about the future, and instead I'm just helping describe and flesh out your present and giving you like a timeline to work with. So I think about it more about timing. And if I'm feeling, I usually just like live my life, though I know the big markers. It's like I know when Mars retrograde is happening. I know when the other like planets this side of Jupiter are retrograding, right? Like I'm not gonna like put everything on hold for 6 months a year because one of the outer planets is retrograde. But I mostly make my plans, and then if I run into something or if I'm feeling frustrated, then I'll check the astrology if I'm not already like super conscious of it, because I often am. We're doing horoscopes, we're doing forecasts, we're sitting with the clients. We usually do know what's happening. Um, but it's usually just to self-soothe, honestly, to
Yeah.
be like, this is why this is so annoying right now. Like we moved
Yeah.
again during Mars retrograde and are like literally like remodeling a home.
hmm
You know what I mean? So I'm like, this makes sense.
Yeah.
This is absolute like I'm gonna do some stuff. This electrical upgrade is obviously gonna take fucking 1 million year. Like so I think I mostly use astrology to help me kind of adjust my expectations and try to find some kind of acceptance.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah. Last weekend, I was so irritated. I was just irritated. And it wasn't out of nowhere, but I was like, there's got to be something Martian happening. And I didn't know exactly what degree of Cancer Mars was at, but it was exactly squaring my MC and IC. And I was like, and it was everything that was irritating me was like family and career and like the interplay between the two. And it was like, it was so like on paper, just like, this is what I would write if I was like making this shit up, you know? And I just looked at it
Totally.
and I was like, oh, hey, there you are. This is like exact right now when I'm feeling it. And it really did help me like just like sit back on the couch a little more and be like, yeah, cool. Okay, this isn't going to be forever. Like this is
Yeah.
the thing, but I can give a little bit, blame the planets, whatever. But it is, it's like a little bit of just like, yeah, cross-pollination or being not blaming, but being like, yeah, I'm a part of this larger ecosystem and there's some weather that's a little bit like yeah, that is affecting me. And I think that's cool that you use it that way too. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about astrology lately and just how popular astrology is, and how with the shifts in the social media landscape of a lot of people becoming more conscious and aware of like where they're speaking out into the world about lots of things, astrology being one of them. It's an interesting time to be an astrologer, because I think that there were a lot of people who were just like, well, we're all the astrologers saying now, like the ones that were wrong about the election, there's this whole like, like you didn't like predict this, right? So it's obviously all bunk. And it's just like an interesting larger conversation that I'm feeling is coming about. And yeah, I'm curious like what your thoughts are about astrology's place in like the socio-political landscape, I guess, without getting too deep into it.
Sure. I mean, I think that astrology is a tool and like I can use the hammer to build a house or I can use it to attack my neighbor, right? You know what I mean? There's no inherent moral or ethical quality to it, first of all. So anybody can use this tool in any way. It's an interpretive tool that also sure works with data sets, but it's a balance of analysis and intuition. Just like I believe it's a balance of free will and fate, right? It's like I don't think like if the weather forecast shows it's going to be raining, you can still choose whether to dress appropriately,
Mhm.
you
Right.
know?
To not go outside. Right. Yeah.
And so I think that like at its most generative, astrology doesn't actually attempt to predict the future, but it does give you clues around kind of the context and what kind of energy is going to be at play. And then armed with that information, we still make our own choices. And I also want to say as far as political predictions go, we can't separate out the human element. Like every astrologer is also a human being who like has hopes that sometimes kind of influence how they delineate things. Like people who think that a thing was going to go a certain way wanted it to go that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't blame them for that. And I also like I can't say that I fully knew. I had a feeling.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that feeling maybe was born out of some cynicism.
Totally.
And and maybe was also born out of like a historical context. So yeah, I think that I think prediction is sticky stuff. I'm still curious about it, but I think that it's more useful in describing kind of the tone and the quality of what's going to happen than actually just saying this is exactly going to happen. Because again, when people come to me, when people read my work, when people engage with it, I want them to feel a sense of agency. I don't want them to feel like everything's already determined because I don't think it is.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I
So
mean, I
that's
love, yeah, tone and quality. Those are nice, really nice words to like, it feels like tactile, and palpable,
yeah. Yeah.
and I loved what you said earlier as well about like, clients come to you and think that they might be getting a prediction or, a fortune telling kind of situation, but it ends up being just, yeah, like languaging or recontextualization around the present moment or like the course of time. And just, I mean,
Yeah.
I look at astrology as just the ancient, most ancient clock and the way that we look at time. And for me, I mean, cycles of time, obviously, like the title of this podcast is like coming from a place where like that doesn't feel radical in any way to most people who I know who are in a lot of realms, especially when they look at the stars and they have a relationship with them. But I think for some people, especially coming out of the cities where you don't have, like, you're not watching the sunrise and set on the horizon. And it's like there's a certain, like, you look at a square calendar on your wall and there's lots of little boxes, and it's like time is in a pretty, like, square way. Like, and so, like, when we put it into the context of a circle or just look at it, like we always have had a relationship with time, like the fourth dimension as humans, but that's shifted so much under colonial capitalist kind of like paradigm, patriarchal, kind of putting it into a different reference plane. And so as unradical as it seems to me now, after all of these years of living within that, I sometimes look at it from this outside perspective of like, oh yeah, this is look, it is a art of time, and that it's time in a way that our modern world doesn't necessarily always operate under, to, from everything from like the present moment awareness to, and that somatic or embodied mindfulness to like the scope of being like, oh, I can look at a Pluto transit and be like, wow, let me think about 248 years. Like, how often do people who are looking at a square calendar like think about that scope? It's like, no, you don't. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I just loved how you framed that, like bringing people into that context of their own, tangible type of time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Rhythm, it's gonna
Rhythm,
get you, the
exactly.
rhythm.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. Speaking of rhythm, just changing gears a little bit here to talk about your birthday. Happy solar
Yeah.
return. Happy birthday season. This episode will be coming out on the week of your birthday. So
Exciting.
happy birthday to you. How do you have a strong relationship about your birthday? Are you a big like birthday celebrator or like,
Yes.
yeah, cool.
I love my birthday. I have always loved my birthday. As a kid, I really struggled um because I didn't have a cool summer birthday, right? I had a winter birthday. But my mom was like, my mom's a 29-degree Pisces sun. So she was like very committed to creating whatever fantasy I dreamed up, right? There was one party where I was really into pirates that year. So we had this pirate party and everybody wore these little vests. I think I was 6 or 7. And my mom made like little fucking like not cardboard, but what's the cardstock? Like parrots for everybody to pin on
Yeah.
their fucking
So cute.
shoulder. And we had gold doubloons and yeah, so it was like just
Love it.
so yeah, I would say I'm like not a typical I think there are some Aquarian identified folks who kind of are too cool to acknowledge the attention that they really want.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's this kind of like I'm gonna wear this wild clothing or like I don't know, be a like just total contrarian
Mhm.
instead of just owning the fact that like I want some fucking attention. That's the thing that like we could really use some guidance on from our Leo siblings.
Yes, I wanted, yeah, that's super interesting. Um,
hmm
yeah, I love that you've embraced that Leo-ish part of it. Costuming does feel very Leo in
Oh
comparison to
yeah.
the typical Aquarian stereotype. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. This year I'm like not throwing a rager for the first time in a while. Like last year I made a bunch of people cut. We've been doing like just big bonfires just because we're still very COVID conscious. We've both had like wild long COVID stuff though. Anyway, all that to say, I don't need to share people's personal health information, but I will say that like we're still conscious, so I was still trying to find ways to celebrate in a way that felt as big and as fun. And so last year I learned like 16 90s cover songs and just like played them on acoustic guitar and made I don't know, 4 gallons of beef stew and just invited everybody over to like sing Liz Fair with me.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
And people showed up and like hung out until 11. It was 22 degrees outside. I finally had to be like, you guys have to go home. You have an over hour plus drive and I'm tired.
That
But
sounds, yeah. I mean, when you bring out the 90s, I mean, 90s around a bonfire with stew, that's perfect. That sounds
yeah.
incredible. I would never leave either.
I
That's
had vegetarian soup too, by the way. It
okay.
was,
Okay. I mean, yeah.
gluten-free bread. I was dialing it in.
Yeah, everybody got theirs.
Mhm.
Nice. That's very Aquarian, I feel, the network effect. You're like, okay, yeah, everybody's gonna get
Mhm.
what they want. And you're
Mhm.
gonna think of the whole community here. So
Exactly.
that's so
Exactly.
cool. That sounds like
Meet your
so much
needs.
fun. Yeah, so this year, no 90s sing-along.
This year, no, but I'm hoping to slowly ease into it and have a couple barbecues, have some orchard hangs, you know.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
fun.
Maybe you'll
Cool.
come pick some apples.
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
Great.
That sounds amazing. Is it apple season? Are the apples are they on the trees at this point?
No, this is
No.
actually when we have to learn how to prune. So
Right.
that
Yeah.
which also inspired that writing this week because I've been like deep dive nerding out.
Yes, pruning season. That's, I mean, I have been relating to pruning a lot with the shedding skin of the year of the snake energy. Yeah,
Hmm.
and it was also in Human Design Wheel of the Year. It was just the Human Design New Year, which is happens in
Ooh.
Aquarius season. They
Okay.
consider the new year to be Aquarius, which is gate 41, and it's this gate of contraction, which is kind of like the need to, it's like contraction in the womb. I see it as like the womb contraction before you can actually come through the birth canal, but also like this need to kind of withdraw or decrease or go inward or prune things back, prune like trim the fat so that there is room for the new to come in. It's like the first stage of newness. So I was like, I appreciate this marker of the
Yeah.
new year. I think there's lots of new years throughout the year that you can choose from, like when you're looking at these wheels of the year. But for that one, I was like, all right, yeah, that seems to be like that Aquarius season when it is still cold, but you're like starting to feel those little inklings of, yeah, just like things starting to be ready to crack the seed or whatever. And the pruning is definitely a part of that, right? So cool that you're doing it in
Yeah.
real life. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and what just struck me, I forget who, some pal was talking about, they've been thinking a lot about, or maybe it was a client, the transition between the tower and the star
Mhm.
in tarot, right? The like everything's destroyed and then here's this like little glint of new hope, you know?
Yeah. There's got to be a glint first before a full on, something else. Yeah. Yeah. Just that little shimmer. Yeah. I see Aquarius season is very shimmery. It feels like there's glimmers and shimmers and kind of it just has that like aliveness vibe to it. Um, yeah. How do you feel about Aquarius? I mean, Aquarius, what do you, do you love your sun sign? Are you like, yes, this is me? Or how do you feel about it?
You know, I do. I do love my sun sign. And I also recognize that like I'm a 12th house sun and I have a fair amount of Pisces in my chart. So I'm also kind of like, and then my Virgo moon is also very strong. And lately my Aries Mars has been very strong as well. So
Mhm.
I think that we're the best. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, I appreciate what Aquarius has to offer, and I also recognize where we're just fucking annoying know-it-alls, you know?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think I do relate strongly to it, but not more strongly than I relate to many of the particularly personal placements in my chart, but also like I have Saturn and Uranus straddling my midheaven in Placidus system. So it's like Sag energy is very strong for me too. And so it's interesting to see kind of like what pops situation to situation and also to see like how my relationship to placements grows and shifts, you
Yeah.
know, but my progressed midheaven did just enter Aquarius, which means that Pluto is on my progressed midheaven right now. So it'll
Oh,
be interesting to see what that means because I'm still like feeling my way into progressions because I forget about them all the time.
Right.
And then I like can't find why something is happening, right? And then
Uh,
you're like, hold on.
a whole
Is
nother
that
chart,
another?
a whole nother layer, right? Like,
Exactly.
let me come onto this other side of the globe and just like, yeah, take a little picture over here.
Hmm.
Yeah. Right. I know
Hmm.
that's such a deep place. And I mean, the tapestry that you're weaving of like the understanding of each component and how, yeah, some show up at different times and how it's always this kind of interwoven, interconnected dance that's happening. I think that requires obviously, yeah, deep study to get to the point or deep just awareness, right? And
Yeah.
it's for me, it's been interesting doing this kind of, I'm essentially doing a sun sign horoscope every week, but I'm like looking
Yeah.
rather than the breadth of all the planets, I'm kind of like, let me just focus on where the sun is and then go deep into that interpretation of that, of where the sun is in a lot of different languages. And
Hmm.
so, and it's something that like sometimes when I talk to other astrologers who I respect, I feel a little bit sheepish, like, hey, sun sign astrologer over here. Like I'm so not I'm just a little like self-conscious because I think sun sign
Hmm.
astrology was given, it was like newspaper articles and like this kind of like lowest common denominator kind of stuff. And I disagree with that. I don't think that I think the sun is very important, but sometimes I'm just like, oh yeah, that is what I'm doing at face value. It's like just really owning the sun.
But
um,
I mean, the bigger problem with a sun sign newspaper horoscope is that really that should be for your rising sign, you know?
totally right. That is the biggest problem, right? Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's how a chart works, right? It's yeah, that
Hmm.
is the biggest problem. It's not the fact that the sun is given credit. Yeah, your month is given, and
Yeah.
it travels slowly through a yeah, as not as slow as many other planets, but it
Yeah.
is it could feel broad, right? If you're just like
Yeah.
everybody born in Aquarius season is like this. But well, I'm curious, like what Aquarian traits do you find that you align with or that you feel like you embody and then which ones do you like think are annoying?
Um, I think systems-based thinking, definitely. I appreciate trying to take a step back. I think that I am prone to not take things personally, which sometimes means I don't advocate for myself when somebody's actually being a jerk. So it goes both ways.
Mhm.
Um, I am future oriented. I do I do have this like blend of like a real reverence for like a classic style or like old items that are just trucking around. Like people don't build things like they used to. So I do feel the Saturnian element of the traditional rulership, but then I also like I'm a tech guy. I love gear,
Uh-huh.
right? It's like I'm texting with the guys at Sweetwater all the time. They're sending me new cables. It's fun.
Nice, nice. Yeah,
Um,
that's
it,
cool.
and I do really appreciate, I think that one of the parts of Aquarian energy and nature that I think is really special and important is this idea of like um, sometimes distance, giving each other a little bit of room makes it easier for us to work together. Like that we don't actually have to be up in each other's shit. And in fact, that often can inhibit collaboration where it's really necessary, right? Like if we're in community with people, there's going to be people you do not like, you cannot stand. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't find some common ground and a way to work together. And I think the way to do that is to like not not need to be so close to acknowledge that we have shared interests. And so that I think is probably particularly with Pluto and Aquarius, particularly as we're seeing this incredible allegiance of the billionaire class, like as working class people, like we need to cultivate some kind of class consciousness and some way of cooperating that can kind of cross the party lines that we're drawn to keep us from working together. And that also means we have to acknowledge all of the horrors of the like paradigm that we're living in and the way that we've kind of unconsciously embodied them and enact them, right? Like, I don't think the way to class consciousness is to ignore racism and misogyny and transphobia and ableism, right?
Mhm.
But I think there are ways to kind of build coalitions where we can figure out who's acting in bad faith and kind of be like, okay, never mind. Right? Like, I'm not here to exclude people for the most part, but if somebody is just like here to cause trouble and a ruckus and actually isn't interested in, I don't know, having clean air and water,
Basics, basics. Yeah.
basics,
Right.
basics,
Yeah.
then like, okay, let's focus our time and energy and attention where it can be well used. Um,
Mhm.
and I guess parts of Aquarian nature that I don't like, but that I do see embodied, there can be this dogmatic thinking. There can be, yeah, a certain aloofness or condescension that I know I embody sometimes and have to like work really hard. Like a lot of the times, I just want you to know if you think an Aquarius is being aloof and an asshole and a know-it-all, there's a chance that they're doing it on purpose. There's an even greater chance that their thinking is so zoomed out they don't even recognize that that's happening. And then, you got to tug on their little pants leg as they're floating away and bring them back down to earth and remind them that they have a heart and feelings, and so does everybody else around them. And sometimes their words, as careful as they think they're being with them, are still pretty sharp and hard to handle.
Mm, mm. That's all very wise, very tuned in. I feel like all of that just hits. I was married to a Aquarian, like a triple Aquarian for over a decade and or yeah, in a relationship for over a decade and very, very close, started a business to get like was deep in it in multiple different levels. Uh, and definitely learned a lot about I don't have any planets in Aquarius, but my seventh house is in Aquarius. So when it comes to relationships, I mean that made sense, right? I'm like literally seeking Aquarian nature to learn from others, right? And
Hmm.
I learned so much because I have a lot in Leo. I have Leo rising, Venus, and Mars. And so a lot of my, inner planets are very Leonine and like a heart center, right? It's all about, I take things personally. It's not the networked Saturnian thing. It's that radiant, like sun energy that's like, it's all about me. And I take things really personally sometimes. And so to be in close relationship with somebody who is really systems oriented, like very, very systems oriented. I love that you mentioned like the floating up because he actually wanted an airship was one of his dreams was to build an airship that was like based on a video game from the 80s and so
Uh-huh.
tech stuff and the airship and I was always like, are you serious about this or like is this just funny? And it was like, no, I really want an airship. And the more I like start to learn about the archetype of Aquarius, I think about, it's as an air sign, it is like I consider Aquarius like the atmosphere kind of where it's like this
Mm.
air that's connecting everything around like a globe. It can be like the Capricorn goat gets to the top of the mountain and is kind of like, hey, I'm here, I'm on the top of the mountain, now what? And then Aquarius comes in, it's like, oh, we just like lift off. We like can
Yeah.
float above, like get on our airship and like go see some other mountains and whatever. And, like so I just like I love that you say that because it's yeah, it can feel aloof, it can feel, but it can also feel like I heard a term the other day that I think it was like empathetic neutrality, where it's like
Oh,
I really liked that for Aquarius.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it can help when you feel like the world is punishing you and just you specifically. And also, yeah, it can also mean that, I don't know, a thing that really would like to work on is being judgmental of other people's more effusive emotional displays, right? Um, because that's kind of whack. It's whack to tell somebody they're being dramatic, even if you think they are.
Yeah, it's not going to help the situation in the moment, but
Not.
it might, in the long term, kind of just be like, okay, yeah, this isn't just about you. This is about the greater thing, how it all connects. And but
But
I feel
also
you.
like, I think that sometimes I have a shortcoming of trying to ascribe or deny the utility of an emotion,
Mhm.
which is my Virgo moon, let's be real. But but ultimately, like the thing about feelings is it doesn't matter if they're useful or not. Like you're just supposed to feel them and express them,
Right.
right? That's how you move through them.
Right.
And so it's like I need to get off my high horse sometimes when I'm just like, just shove it down so it comes out sideways, you know?
Right. Like, let's think of the bigger picture here. Like this, yeah. Why are we getting so caught
And
up
then
in
you're
this
gonna cry on the bus.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I recognize this dynamic for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious about so the week that this episode will go live is gonna be a Leo full moon. And that's leading up to your birthday. I believe it's on the 13th. I need to double check.
Hmm.
But it's yeah, I'm curious what you think about that. The polarity between Leo and Aquarius. You mentioned it earlier, but since we are going to be in this full moon energy that is all about these polarities between these different archetypes, I'm curious, yeah, how do you see that?
Well, I do believe that all of these sibling signs have wisdom to lend each other, have skills to share with one another. And, some of it is very much like just what we were talking about, right? A full moon is going to be usually a swell of emotion or the emotional consequence of something that was seeded at another point, right? That it's like it's reaching this full circle. Um, or it's reaching this point where we have full clarity of the impact, and so yeah, Aquarius again can teach Leo how to kind of maybe be a little more discerning around whether something is deeply personal or whether it's more situational or systemic, but you got Uranus coming into all of these fixed full moons just kind of throwing a wrench in things, but I also do believe that Uranus is trying to get us to integrate and synthesize these seemingly polarized experiences, right? So there's something from a larger perspective that's very intellectual because I think Mercury is really close to that moon. I think they're
Hmm.
like nearly conjunct or to the
Yeah.
sun. So there's something that is striking us, or some idea that was seeded that we're starting to realize like how it affects us personally. And so I think on a larger scale, particularly in like the current United States political climate, I do think a lot of people are going to understand more fully how personally this new administration is going to impact them.
Mhm.
And then with Uranus coming in from the side, forming a T square to the sun and moon, I think there is kind of this need to not only care if it impacts you personally, but also to get like pissed enough and to get like it aroused enough to to act, to kind of to identify the patterns and figure out if we can preempt or kind of interrupt in some way, right? I feel
Yeah.
like that's kind of, and I don't know if you do this too, but when I see a T square, I usually look for the missing leg,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
And so there's something about
Scorpio.
Scorpio energy, yeah, that we have to figure out how to kind of take this garbage and this poison and figure out how to transmute it, how to alchemize, and how to move strategically, right? We could have like a very public response.
Hmm.
And also, there needs to be something that we are kind of building just out of sight if we're actually going to successfully utilize the element of surprise, which is also embodied by Uranus, right? There needs to be some strategy. It can't be sheer reaction, and it can't just be um, present and emotional. It also has to be future oriented and action oriented, right? Because with Scorpio, we do have that Mars rulership.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Is that
Mhm.
every time I try to talk about a full moon, I'm like, I don't know. This even makes sense.
Oh, it so does. I love that. I mean, I think that the personal, Leo being the moon in Leo, and the moon is emotionality. It's the kind of that subconscious place where, we're really looking at that like the consciousness of the sun, the kind of like directed will of Aquarian sun
Hmm.
that's like, oh, these are the systems. And like, let me read about all the systems and see this larger picture. And then I loved that you brought brought in, yeah, that really personal kind of like, how am I feeling this in my heart? And that
Yeah.
like is embodied by both the Leo sign and the moon itself, like the luminary
Yeah.
that is there, really feeling like this reflection of like, oh, I am a part of this. Like, I like to think of Leo as the heart and Aquarius as the circulatory system, and they're
Totally.
like interconnected. They're both pumping blood through, but it's like a very
Mhm.
different way that they're doing that. And so the feeling in your heart, that you are affected by the larger systems, no matter who you, yeah, I think that will be a major theme of this moon. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the Aquarius, yeah, I mean, Uranus in Taurus, it's like an earthquake, Taurus is fixed earth, and then you have Uranus, it's like this electric jolt. And so it is this kind of like, yeah, it's a shocking revelation, of that personal within the political, right? And like that being a human, you can't be unpolitical if you're living in this world in a certain way. There's like
Yeah.
layers of which you can interact. But I do love that you brought up that fourth leg, the other fixed sign, Scorpio, because especially the year of the snake here. I mean, because Scorpio, another, it's a scorpion, but it's also a
Mhm.
serpent and a certain lore, and serpent and the eagle and the phoenix. And it's this transmutative kind of, yeah, energy that like keeping your belly low to the ground, being agile, like not
Mhm.
necessarily like shock and it's like, yeah, how do we work within a shock and awe system that and have it like a little more grounded so that we can stay in our
Yeah.
hearts? I think, yeah, your explanation made a lot of sense. So just kind of um
Yeah.
tuning
Well, and
into it.
Uranus is also like parked on Trump's midheaven right now too. And not like I understand people live other places and aren't under this administration. And also, unfortunately, we have, as a country, a lot of impact on the world. So it's like, yeah, he is. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's I
This would
know.
be a good time for you to tell me that you're really into MAGA.
Oh boy. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, 11 days in, it's kind of, yeah, I remember shock and awe. Like I think of Uranus, I think of shock and awe, and I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, Uranus on his midheaven. And those actual words were spoken, right before
Hmm.
the inauguration on Fox News. It was like, this is going to be day one shock and awe. And I remember hearing those same words I lived in New Orleans in like early 2000s, kind of through Hurricane Katrina and
Yeah.
Iraq War. And I remember going to school, like going down to college and then walking along the French Quarter and like popping into a shop where there was a TV on and hearing the word shock and awe for the first time about like the invasion of Baghdad and about the
Hmm.
kind of like weapons of mass destruction. And, and so it's like this. Speaking of cycles, it's like, okay, I'm being taken back to like 2002 when that was like a strategy. And so I'm like, oh, here we are again. And it's like, sometimes that's really sad because you're like, have we not gotten anywhere? Like, are we just,
Yeah.
I think about some of the baby boomers. They're like, what? This was supposed to all be fixed with like the civil rights movement. Like, we had a year where it was like 1960, you know what I mean? And then it's like, why is it still?
Yeah.
And then there's like this like kind of despair and apathy that's like, well, I'm sad that it still is
Yeah.
how it is. But like in my mind, I think that yeah, I'm very much clear about my political,
Yeah.
beliefs and not afraid to talk about them. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think that, like you said, being able to zoom out to like a larger picture. I mean, the United States Pluto return that's happening right now is like, we're just over that and into
Oh yeah.
this era of like, oh yeah, all the revolutions that happened in the 1700s. Um, and not using that as a way to just tap out and be like, oh, well, history repeats itself, so here we am. It's like I look at it like more like a spiral rather than a cycle
Yeah.
where you come to the same place, or like you have the opportunity
Hmm.
to reflect back on the cycle of things, and then ultimately you have to look at like what new information do you have in this new cycle. It's not the same. We're not in the
Yeah.
1930s, we're not in the 1700s. There's a lot that has changed and a lot
Yeah.
more that people can grok and grasp now than then in some ways. So that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And we hope we do.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect because like with more information and more
Yeah.
technology, that's obviously like there's a possibility that that could be used for good or evil, like you said. Like it's not an
Right.
it's not going to just go one way or the other. And so,
Mhm.
but there's something, there's a lot to be able to pay attention to now, a lot of access to
Yeah,
different voices that we may not have had before,
true.
that I do appreciate.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
yeah, right. I mean, in my lifetime, I don't know how old you are, but I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I'm 41. I've lived a
Yeah.
few decades, and I'm like, during this time, I'm so grateful that I've been able to like hear and learn from the amount of different voices that I have
Yeah.
compared to like my parents or grandparents or somebody in 1781 or whatever. So there's that.
Totally. I'm grateful we had the polio vaccine, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
Just
Exactly.
saying.
Yeah, truly.
Anyway.
No, but yeah, it's hard to feel like you said in your newsletter about being feeling deciduous. It's hard to feel really concrete
Mhm.
about anything new, even sparks of hope or newness. It's
Yeah.
hard to grab onto those and really be like, "Yeah, this is how I distinctly feel," because there's a lot of shedding that is currently happening, a lot of grief.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's real and big. And yeah, just like we've got to get away from the binary. We like have to get away from this just like dividing up every single issue that impacts us. Like it's wild. It's wild that like clean water is political. Not to sound like Winona LaDuke, but you know what I mean? It's like it is wild that there aren't and then if you look at the polling data, actually there's quite a few social issues that like most people in this country are on the same page on. Most
Mhm.
people in this country support social welfare programs. Most people in this country support having reproductive agency. You know what I mean? Like most people in this country actually are on the same page. And it is like just quite a head fuck to see the ways that we're getting kind of manipulated and tossed around. And so it's like, yeah, how do we find ways to see who's actually reachable and try to reach them, right? Like, not everyone is, but a lot of folks are.
I agree with that deeply. I don't, yeah, I think that the divide and conquer is a strategy of empire, and it has been for
It's
the
worked for
longest
them.
time. Yeah. And so it's like, can we just see that part of,
Yeah,
history?
yeah,
Like just take
yeah,
that one little nugget and remember that, like wear it on
yeah.
your sleeve when you're out in the world and be like, if I'm feeling divisive for and like reactionary to someone because of
Hmm.
one thing, it's like, no, yeah, I agree. You have to get
Yeah.
beyond the black and white. And I mean, your Substack is called Mutable Musings, and your
Oh, yeah.
podcast. So, yeah, how did you come to that title?
Well, I just have, I don't technically have a mutable grand cross. I just want everybody to know that. But I have a lot of mutable energy in my chart. And I think that part of it was just, I guess you could say that there's disparagement kind of across the board. So some of it just tongue in cheek, some of it like maybe a little more earnest. But I felt that I was finding kind of this resistance or this like maybe I don't even want to say full on shame, and I definitely don't want to bite like Britton LaRue's whole thing, but like I definitely felt like it was a problem that I was um adaptable and reflexive and sensitive to my environment, and that like I didn't always know how or why I knew things, or that I was like able to shift gears or absorb information in ways that were like not really linear.
Mhm.
And so I think part of it was just like cultivating appreciation for that. And then I also just like needed to start an LLC, so I just started one and started Mutable Cross, and then that just became my like social media handle, and then I started my Substack, and I was like, well, I guess this is like kind of an extension of this business
Mhm.
slash persona. I don't know. It's so weird to like be a brand and also like we treat corporations better than anyone else in this country, which is something that my mentor taught me in like 2018. He was like, no, 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 you're not my employee. You become a business, and then I'm a business. And then we're just businesses working together. And we're
Mhm.
all businesses, which like would love if it didn't have to be that way. But that's kind of how that started. And it was also because I was like doing carpentry work and then also doing astrology and then also doing podcasting, like all under the same umbrella. So it like I was like, oh yeah, I am mutable in my my skills, interests, and my way of like surviving this world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a Sagittarius, if you have Sagittarius midheaven stuff
hmm
going on, that feels really relevant to
hmm
like a business, right? Or to like your forward facing, having that like, oh yeah, I can do this and that. And yeah.
hmm
Yeah. Yeah. It's
hmm
interesting you mentioned Britton LaRue because I've worked with her quite a bit and
Oh,
she's
cool.
very mutable as well
Mm.
in her
hmm
chart and kind of identifies with that. Yeah, like that having to be one thing or another. I've
Yeah.
always related to that. Yeah, like a lot of shame comes from being like, I'm supposed to be one or the other thing. And what if
hmm
I'm multi-passionate, as they say, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to like be like, well, how can I be a corporation if I'm multi-passionate, right? If I'm supposed to be a corporation
hmm
in this world, like how can I, yeah, still embrace my
Yeah.
fluid nature and non-binary nature and or in I totally relate to that. I think I have a lot of mutability in my chart as well.
I
So
can tell.
a little bit of this, a
I
little bit
see
of
you.
that.
I see you over there. But it's
Yeah.
like we make great cooks, you know what I mean? We know how to blend ingredients.
Right. Yeah.
We can
Totally.
imagine an uncanny combination being delicious.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
you know, and I like being a work in progress too, which I didn't know. I thought I like needed to arrive. I thought I needed to be fixed, right? I thought I needed to like, we grew up in an education system that was designed for assembly lines.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, and it turns out that we're all much more complex and interesting than just, wearing out one body part by making the same motion for 30 years. Like, no thanks.
Right.
But but yeah, it took a while to get there. And I also will say, she's deeply cardinal, but mm, Jenny, my relationship with her has been very inspirational as far as just like actually fully betting on yourself and trusting in your skills enough to invest in them, you know?
Hmm. Definitely.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Well, we don't know, we don't have too much time left, but I wanted to hit on one last component of your chart here, which is
Yeah.
the human design gate. Because I tend to speak to that every week as this kind
Please
of like
do.
I look at human design. I mean, it's based on the I Ching, the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. And if I had to choose one way of talking about the 64 and I only could choose one, I would definitely choose the I Ching because I've been into the I Ching since high school, I think, and it's been very fascinating. But I love how human design and the gene keys have kind of brought a little bit more of a awareness of that system from the other side of the globe to to American minds. And I see it being a way to kind of like reach people with a certain interest in that. But ultimately, I consider the 64 hexagrams or 64 gates like micro seasons of the year. And I look at each season ahead, like I look at Aquarius season, and I've gone deep into looking at, the history of Aquarius and in the Greek perspective, the Babylonian perspective, Egyptian, like I'm interested in just like cross-cultural kind of synthesis of these. But human design and the I Ching really gave me like an insight into like an ordering of energies, kind of like a story arc within the season. And so your gate is the final gate of Aquarius season because you're kind of a late Aquarius. You're almost to
Oh
Pisces.
yeah.
You're almost cuspy-ish, like almost there. And so mutable, getting mutable. But I'd love to just do you know anything about your human design sun gate?
I know so little. One person one time tried to tell me, and all I can remember is that I'm supposed to respond to community need and that I'm maybe in a period where I'm up on the roof until I'm 50.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. All right.
That's all I
Yeah.
know.
Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. You're probably a projector if you're waiting to, oh no, you're probably a generator. Anyway, I don't need to go into that. I think that there's like types and profiles of
Yeah.
human design that are the most like easy to digest, kind of like a sun sign horoscope, I would
Yeah.
say. where it's kind of like, oh, you're this, and like this is your strategy to work with this. And for me, that's an interest. It's probably how it hooked me in the first place to be like,
Hmm.
oh, cool. How do I feel about that? But the way I look at it is really through these gates, which is just
Yeah.
it's like the wheel of the I Ching, this ancient cycle that's like superimposed onto the wheel of the year. So it's like where in the seasons these energies
Hmm.
are showing up. And so your sun gate is the gate of passion. It's also known as the gate of feelings. And
Okay.
in the I Ching, it's two, all of the hexagrams are made up of two trigrams. And so like
Hmm.
8 times 8 is 64. And so there's eight different elemental trigrams. They're these lines that represent
Mm.
like heaven, earth, uh, lake, fire. There's eight different elements within the system that are combined to form the 64. And your hexagram is fire over fire, which is kind of cool. It's pretty, like if
Yeah.
you're like an air sign or watery or mutable, it's like fire is, yeah, this brings the fire, which makes sense with passion and the gate of feelings or the gate of passion. And it's also known in the I Ching as clinging fire. And it's this idea that like
Mm.
fire like feeds on itself.
Hmm.
It's like you have two elements of fire and they're able to kind of like fuel themselves in this kind of like yeah, this kind of systemic way. And also fire needs things to fuel it as well. Like it has to burn on um fuel of wood and that kind of thing. And so it's an interesting hexagram. And before I go any deeper into it, I'm just curious, like how that lands for you. Um, these words. I'm just curious about like how words land. Sometimes passion, feelings, fire, fire over fire.
I mean, I think that I am, I always attributed it to my Mars in air. I have this little, as you can see, I have like a mini Grand Trine. I have Mars in Aries at 27 degrees, and then I have Uranus in Sagittarius at 25 degrees, very close to galactic center, and then my Aquarius sun bisects them. So I, I know I get fiery and fired up, and I know that I can be in this little, like, if I get going on the right thing, I do have this kind of persistence that is almost fueled by frustration,
Mhm.
which to me, like, that's kind of where I went when I was thinking about the fire over fire and the passion and feelings. Because I also, ooh, if I don't care about something, good luck getting me to do it. You'll probably have to get me very stoned to do something I don't care about. Like,
Uh-huh.
like,
Uh-huh.
I'll need a big edible
To
to
go
go to
prune the
jury
trees
duty.
if you're a jury dude. Yeah, pruning is something you want to do.
Yeah, no,
You're
I'm
excited
excited.
about
I'm
that.
excited to add to my skills, I
Uh-huh.
want somebody somebody the other day was like when we were like moving and I was, fucking remodeling our kitchen and doing all the shit. Somebody was like, "You're very capable." And I was like that to me, I'm like, "Yes, that's what I want. I want you to see me and be like, she'll take care of it." So I don't know if that aligns to you or not, but that's what I think about when you talk about fire over fire is like yeah, when I turn it, it's this persistence, it's this insistence, it's also this, yeah, passionate, devouring nature once I'm like hooked into something that's interesting to me.
Nice. Yeah, totally. I see that. Right. It's like this, just an emotional intensity
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of needs to be nurtured by, yeah, like something in your environment or your outside world. Like they talk about this gate as kind of like, as the fire needs to be attached to something in order to keep
Yeah.
burning, like to continue burning, it needs more fuel. And so like human desires can attach to dreams and to yeah, emotions. And you were talking about kind of a little bit of the more neutrality when it comes to emotions. But what I see from your writing and just, like my
Oh, I
experience of
feel.
like how you put yourself out there, it's like, oh no, you're like, yeah, have a very passionate way about communicating anyway. So
It's true. No,
yeah.
it's true. I also
Yeah.
have like these two different voices. Like I have one where I'm just like talking casually, or if I'm like shy or not passionate, where I joke with people that my voice is like the same frequency as a fan. Like it'll just like totally blend into the background. But then if I'm like surprised or annoyed or somebody makes me repeat myself, I get like a much shriller timbre that's like
Mhm.
barky kind of. I'm not going to do it to you, but like I do think, yeah, it's like I hook into things. And I think that's why astrology and music, like I'm so happy to keep deepening my study because there's always more to devour, right? There's always like more skill to build. There's always more instruments to play, right? There's always more styles to try to learn. There's always like something else to latch on to keep burning.
Passion alive. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, music and astrology are two, yeah, like those two things very much are like infinite. You could do them for the rest of your life and the next several lifetimes without ever
Yes.
repeating or like, yeah, and always bringing something new into it that you can engage with, not just like passively let it wash over you, but it's like that
Yeah.
interpersonal kind of engagement as well. So,
And
yeah.
they're good tricks to bring to a party too, right? Like if you don't know people and you're trying to make conversation, like you either bust out a guitar at the bonfire or you just start telling somebody about their astrology and like boom, next thing you know,
You're the
you're
most
in.
popular girl in the world. The 90 songs will never stop. Yeah. The list there
Exactly.
goes on and on and on. I
Exactly.
love that. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting today. It's been so fun to connect with
Yeah.
you. And I'd love for you to tell, yeah, everybody how they can find you, your podcast. I know do you have a couple of podcasts going on still or just one now?
You know, do I have anything going on right now? No, I have two podcasts that are in the shedding state right now. But I do publish monthly horoscopes for all 12 signs, which have been behind a paywall in the past, but I've also been like reorienting how I share publicly. So for now, they're free. You should go listen to them and share them. You can find me literally by just Googling Rose Blakelock or going to roseblakelock.com. From there, there's links to book a session, buy a gift card, join my Substack, which is where I share the most. And then I'm also developing some workshops and offerings for this year. But I'm just trying to like feel like everybody is overwhelmed and disoriented right now. And so I'm trying to like not put the cart before the horse as far as like planning out a bunch of shit when I don't even know what people are up for. So I'm trying
Yeah.
to kind of tap into that mutability, but definitely go to my website. There's a link there for my Substack. I also think my Substack is literally just roseblakelock.com, roseblakelock.substack.com.
I believe so.
Um,
It's really
I
good.
believe
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. I highly recommend the horoscopes. And I mean, just, yeah, I think people are overwhelmed, but to know that there's something out there to like tap into these,
Yeah.
yeah, these languages of understanding. And you do it so well as far as it's
Thank
like
you.
how we're connected to not just the stars, but the earth as well. So, yeah,
Thanks.
definitely go visit roseblakelock.com and
You'll
if
find
you have the
everything there.
bandwidth, yeah, you'll find everything there.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm on Instagram, but I don't really use it anymore. In fact, I think I just put a post up today that was like, just please go to my website or do these other things. So, but I'm Mutable Cross on there. So you can at least find me. It's more like a bulletin board.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, link in bio, but you're not like gonna be hanging out there, but it's there
No.
for the yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Amazing.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, yeah, have a beautiful rest of your day. Get out there pruning those trees and
Gonna
yeah,
try.
yeah, awesome. Talk to you again soon.
Awesome.
Okay, bye.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Allison.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being on the show, Rose, and to all of you for listening to Cycles of Time. And if you're new here, you can find me on anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to get a notification in your inbox every Monday, along with some extra visual aids and extra materials on Substack, this is a project on Substack as well. And you can find it at astrosomatics.substack.com. You can also follow me on Instagram or Blue Sky at Cycles of Time Podcast or astro.somatics. And I'm migrating a bit on social media, but I'm checking some spots like a billboard, like Rose said. So we can connect. I would love to connect. And I also do have right now a Google Calendar that is kind of lining up with all it provides detailed descriptions of all of the major astrological transits, as well as the human design sun gates. So kind of what is the energy of that human design wheel of the year that we're transiting through. And those include information about the I Ching and the gene keys as well. It also has all the pagan holy days and kind of these transitionary moments between the 5-element wheel and the medicine wheel. So there's a lot in there. I spent a lot of time on it. And so if you're interested in following along with the wheel of the year through these different cultural stories and wisdoms, I have it on my Etsy shop, and I'll post that in the show notes as well. And other than that, I just recommend that you check out Rose Blakelock's work at roseblakelock.com or roseblakelock.substack. And I hope to see you again next week. Have a beautiful, beautiful week ahead. All the love. Bye.